There is a wall of pharmaceuticals that keeps out the sea of depression so that the farmers can cultivate the fertile land behind the protective dike. Tulips and vegetables, all manner of nutritious and pretty things are cultivated there. And all this is enclosed within four walls, four elements of the lower worlds of the demiurge. Lower worlds because it's the same amount of energy being driven round and round, merely changing its form. And the three qualities, destruction, creation, and preservation, wind their merry way through this crazy dance. And this is the world. A wall of pharmaceuticals keeping back the sea of depression to enable the farmers to cultivate the fertile lands which have been reclaimed from the sea. But the sea hasn't gone away, neither will the wall that protects the fertile lands, the wall of the antidepressants. Nothing really has changed, even though a lot has changed. Obviously, without the wall, the sea would engulf the land and nothing could grow there. And we're talking here about a Dutch solution, I suppose. You pay Dutch. The group goes to the cafe and each person pays separately. That's what they call paying Dutch. And what is the way out of here? I think the way out of here is that as a result of cultivating the land which lies beyond the dike and keeps the sea back, I think cultivating the land enables a person to accumulate enough merit or wealth, spiritual wealth, I suppose, in this case, to enable them to get out of that land and go on a journey where they might find a land which doesn't need protection from a wall of pharmaceuticals, and to a land where perhaps the law of scarcity and the second law of thermodynamics does not apply. Such a land is almost inconceivable, really. It's almost beyond one's comprehension. And yet we have just enough imagination to realise that such a land might exist, even though the details are completely not alien to us, but also hidden from us, in the sense of being inconceivable in the general run of things, I suppose. So that really is the within the four walls, within the lower worlds, it is necessary to cultivate the fertile ground of the imagination extended outwards as a sort of pseudopodium of consciousness, which goes out from a single point to all points, if it can, through dreams and through visions and through spontaneous introspection, and through the activity and action of the Holy Spirit, which will enable the person to leave these dyked lands, these lands that have been reclaimed from the sea, before, of course, the sea overcomes the wall and floods the fertile ground that lies beyond the dike, because the sea is going to expand as the planet warms up, and the sea will overcome all these walls that keep the sea back, and the sea walls will collapse and the depression will rush in and engulf everything in its path. But before that, perhaps there is something that can be done. But at the same time, there is nothing that can be done because the sea isn't going to go away. Whereas the wall is going to go away, and the lands that have been cultivated will go away, and there'll be nothing left but the great sea of depression enclosed within the walls of the lower worlds and the four walls of the four elements. So you better shape up, because we need a man or a woman that can keep the imagination satisfied. But unless that happens, I suppose death is the only way out, and suicide is the only way out. And these private thoughts invade and sometimes burst through the dike that has been created to keep the sea of depression back. Because, as I said, the sea has not gone away. It is there to stay. And I suppose, you could go to any magician and some holistic therapist, and they will and and they'll think about the causes, and they'll say you should express yourself and express your pain and get it all out of you. Perhaps they're right, but in my experience, this only is a sort of placebo effect which doesn't last. It all just comes back and back and back. And the sea is ready, angry and aggressive, and ready to take over the world. Some people would say, why don't you just let it rip and let the dike down, let your defences down, but then there'd be no fertility of the ground. It would all be destroyed. And I think it's only through the fertility of the ground and what is cultivated there, safe from the sea, is what's going to enable consciousness to expand out and to escape the four walls, the lower worlds, you see. So it's a necessary, the cultivated lands are necessary. They represent imagination and expansion of consciousness, without which suicide is the only answer. And suicide is not the same as transcendental meditation or transcendence in the corporeal sense of the word. Perhaps, of course, there isn't anything to transcend to. It could still be the fact that, there is nothing beyond the four walls of the lower worlds. There is only chaos and blackness and nothingness. But still, the consciousness needs to expand out from the worlds to a different world, which is just beyond its comprehension. It's needed in order to give some sort of meaning to life. But of course, as Grayling said, it's no good having deriving meaning from a lie. If there is no God and there's no afterlife and there's no heaven, then pretending that there is not a very good way of deriving meaning from existence. What you need to do is live in the here and now and derive meaning from, the things that you can achieve whilst you're alive. And that's of course, that's Grayling's attitude, being a humanist and materialist, of course. Philosopher, and his book Against All Gods makes that perfectly clear, that why on earth do you rely on a lie to make things feel better? It's surely better, really, to keep on with the pharmaceuticals on one hand and to make the best of life on the other, because it's true enough that the world of pain, the ocean of pain in which we all exist separately, isn't going to go away. And neither is the wall of pharmaceuticals, which is created to keep the ocean back, you see. So I suppose really meaning doesn't necessarily need metaphysics. That's my point. You don't necessarily need to believe in anything in order to have a meaningful life or enjoy a meaningful existence. which is what Grayling says about atheism, that atheists are pretty happy people once they have really accepted and booted out the nonsense of religion that's foisted upon them when they're kids, and you know, and where basically it's all just a sort of computer game which has no existence beyond the pixels that have been created by the technology that created the pixels in the first place. So we have this kind of Grayling's view on one hand, extremely anti-religious philosopher on one hand, and this incredibly complex Gnostic cosmology and metaphysics on the other, like almost two heads sort of in conflict with each other, as it were, but ultimately all wanting, both heads wanting the same thing, which is comfort and meaning, and sort of happiness in life, I suppose, really, or such happiness as can be experienced, given the fact that we live in a world of pain, which is held back by pharmaceuticals and antidepressants, and even, and I suppose diet as well comes into it. I mean, they're all chemical solutions. They're not metaphysical solutions to the problem of existential pain. They are definitely material solutions, and material solutions they will remain. But that, of course, could be the point of it, that we're talking about the lower worlds. We're talking about what we know. You know, you write about what you know, as they advise the novelist to do. Write about what you know. So we know about all this world, but we don't know anything about the next world, other than the next world exists in some shape or manner, and whatever existence means. So we don't have a lot of data. We do have a lot of metaphor, we do have a lot of symbol, which is expressed in the Gospels of Nag Hammadi folio, and in the Gospels, in the Bible, the Torah anyway. We do have all these metaphors and symbols, which are sort of like signposts that are us pointing at something else, and something other. But the exact nature of this something else and something other is completely obscured to us at this present time. And perhaps, you know, the purpose of life on this realm, on these lower worlds, is to create a picture of what it is that we cannot conceive. So that, as I say, the picture can be filled with experience. So you experience something, because you've created a good picture of it. You know, you've got a reference point. You've got something to refer to when you're experiencing something that is inconceivable. So you have to kind of create this picture in order to conceive of what you're going to experience. Otherwise you won't. Well, otherwise you won't know what you're experiencing. You'll experience something, but it'll remain so occult to you, so hidden from you, even when you're in the vicinity of the source of this experience, which is supposedly transcendental, that it won't mean anything to you, and you might as well be dead anyway, like, you know. So we're creating with our imaginations a life that is yet to come. It's not the imagination that's doing anything. It's the imagination that's going to clothe that which cannot be consciously experienced in any way that we are presently familiar with. You see, I think that's the point that I want to make. And so, you know, this is Gnosis and the Great Sea, I suppose. And we'll have to see what Gnosis reveals